Hello and welcome to the Marketing in Uncertain Times webinar, which is brought to you by Andrew Scott, the founder of Perplex Marketing, Insight Data and the Glazing Summit. We've had nearly 300 people register for this webinar, so I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen in and hear the advice Andrew would like to share with you today. My name is Sam Cross and I'm a director at Perplex, and I'm here to introduce Andrew and ask some of the questions that you guys are hopefully going to be sending in. For those of you that don't know Andrew's background, he's acquired, built and sold several companies over the years, including trade fabricator Cambrian Windows that he helped grow from 1 million to 12 million turnover in 4 years before it was acquired by Masco. Today, Andrew has a large business portfolio spanning marketing, media, technology and property, and he has advised some of the biggest names in the home improvement and building products industry on marketing and business strategy. Over the past few weeks, Andrew has been inundated with questions from business owners asking what they should be doing and saying during this time of crisis. And the purpose of this webinar is to share some of those thoughts and ideas so you can apply them to your business today. But without further ado, I'd like to pass over to Mr. Scott.
Hi folks, and welcome to today, and thanks for joining me in unprecedented times, as the phrase seems to be. Hopefully what I want to get out of today is to give some direction to that and a bit of an action plan to help the industry and help some of the companies that we work with currently and some of those that we don't work with. What's happened right now is we become absolutely addicted to news and media, and that's creating a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety. It's not surprising really. You know, when this first broke, there was reports of 500,000 people potentially losing their lives, and over time that's been reduced, but it's still obviously a very, very, very serious situation, and it's impacting many people's lives. So we've become addicted to news and media. And I'm going to pull some stats and information actually as I go through this. So it's just interesting to note that FT, Financial Times, has reported a 250% increase in web traffic, and actually a tenfold increase in subscriptions to the FT. And actually, you know, talking about the newspaper and print media earlier today with some people, 200,000 people have signed up to have their newspapers delivered to them at home. So there's been a massive surge of people still wanting to read the media, but they haven't been able to get it from their supermarket or shop, so they've signed up to have it online. According to The Independent on 30th of March, smartphone interaction has increased by a staggering 200%. That's a threefold increase. And it's going to be interesting if you look at how much time you spend on your phone. If you look at the app that tells you how much time you're spending on it, I think mine certainly rocketed, and most people's have as well. The other situation we're in now is an absolute proliferation of medical, scientific, economic, and business experts. Suddenly, everybody's got an opinion on the crisis, a medical opinion, an economic opinion, a scientific opinion, and many of those are at opposite ends of the scale. So we're in a situation now where we're consuming mass media, we're attached, almost addicted to our phones, and we're listening to so many experts that it's creating a sense of paralysis. We don't quite know what to believe. We don't quite know what to do. So what I want to do today is take more of a pragmatic approach. I don't want to get caught up in the situation of what do we do, what do we not do. I just want to really cut through it all and say, look, you know, we're in this situation. It won't last forever. We will come out the other side of it. And what do we practically need to do now as business owners and marketing teams? What do we need to do to get through this and come out the other side with businesses, with our employees, and with our customers? So that's what I want to concentrate on today. What I want to look at, first of all, very quickly, is the three stages of a crisis. And they are the immediate situation as we're in now, which is a lockdown. Then there's the fallout for it as we come out of the immediate crisis and things begin to normalize. And at that point, we are still in a bit of shock. We tend to be quite reactive. We will be saying things like, this will change everything. Nothing's ever going to be the same again. The world's going to change now. The industries are going to change. Everything's going to change. Everybody's going to be on Zoom. Everybody's going to be online, and so on. And actually, that's actually not going to happen. There will certainly be a shift. There will certainly be more online meetings. There will certainly be more use of Zoom. But actually, if you think historically through crisis, what's happened? A few a certain age group will remember, say, for example, the mad cow disease of the 90s, and at that point, 60% of Britain said they would no longer eat British beef. And within a couple of years, actually, meat consumption had increased in comparison to previously. In 9/11, the world went into lockdown in terms of air travel, and we weren't going to fly anymore. And what actually happened was after the dip, air traffic actually increased, and actually today is more than double what it was back then. So whatever happens, we generally have a bit of a fallout period, and everything's going to be different. We're going to do things differently, and then we start to normalize. Now, the challenge that we're going to face is the new normal for us will be straight into a recession. So I think that's probably unavoidable. We can't put our head in the sand with that. Of course, there's different degrees of recession, and the government have taken already massive steps to minimise that line as much as they possibly can. So they have introduced a number of financial measures to help with that, minimise that. But we will go into some form of recession, whether it's a mild or a deeper recession. So the question really is, how do we now adapt our businesses to deal with that? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Really is, how do we adapt to that? Now, the good news is for the fenestration and home improvement industry is this: that recessions don't affect every sector and every industry. And what we have certainly seen in the last couple of weeks, and I'll run through some data a bit later in this presentation, what we have certainly seen is some really hopeful signs actually for our industry. So I think actually during this period, whether it's a very short recession or a light one or a bit deeper and a bit longer, then I think the home improvement industry actually will fare quite well for reasons that I will explain shortly. We have seen fiscal stimulus. We have seen a £330 billion aid package. I don't think that will be the end of it. And I think the government will do everything that they can to minimise the current situation. So, there's hugely varying economic reports. I'm not an economist, but the certain consensus is that we will have a dip and then a fairly quick return to some sort of level of normality. One point that we do have to tackle and get it out there really is the state of our industry. For those that don't know, I set Insight Data up in 2007, just before the last recession actually, and Insight Data tracks the industry, tracks all the fabricators and installers and the wider building industry as well. So we know who's doing what, where, and when, and we use this information to track what's happening in the industry and to report on it. So I want to share some facts with you. There's about 4,200 fabricators in the UK, aluminium, PVC and timber. Of that, we are able to overlay some financial information on about 3,200 of those. So the rest are hidden for different reasons. Perhaps they're a sole trader and they're not producing accounts. Perhaps they are hidden in a group structure that we can't access the financial information. There's about 3,200 fabricators where we can, and there's about 5,700 installers who buy in products. These are just installers who buy in products that we've been able to financially profile as well. There's about 12,000 installers overall, and there's about 8,500 that just buy in products. So this data just relates to those that we've been able to overlay financial data on. And what it tells us is that, and actually the data is quite similar between fabricators and installers. So there is about 55% of the market of companies who are very good. They're financially strong. They're doing well up to this point. They are very low risk companies. Then there are about 33% which are moderate risk. So those businesses are doing fairly well. They're doing okay, moderate risk. But the worrying number really is the 12% of fabricators and installers that are high risk. So these companies have got a very poor credit rating. So they've got either very poor or poor credit rating as defined by CreditSafe, the credit reference agency. So there's about 353 fabricators that are high risk and 685 installers. Now, that's a sample of the companies that we've been able to profile. If you scale that up and applied the same percentages to all companies in the industry, which there's about 14,000 fabricators and installers, you'd be looking at about 1,600 companies that were in the high risk category. So those companies now need to take immediate and fast action if they're going to survive this situation. So what does it mean in practice? I think we're going to have a very slight contraction in the next few months, or a moderate contraction. I think it will come back fairly quickly, actually. But I think we'll have a bit of a contraction, and that will impact those high-risk companies. There is clearly a shortage of liquidity in every sector, in every market. That's going to impact those companies in terms of cash flow. And as a result of that, I think we'll see a number of industry failures, sadly, and also we'll see proliferation of acquisitions, mergers and acquisitions. So I think that's my prediction for the industry. It won't happen next month. I think it'll be a 6 to 12 month cycle, so that we'll see some consolidation, less companies, more mergers and acquisitions. What trade suppliers and commercial suppliers have to do is obviously carefully manage their credit risk at that point. So I also appreciate that there's nearly 300 people on this webinar, and that includes companies from the wider building products industry, and some journalists and media on there as well from national newspapers as well that have asked to join us to get a bit of an insight into the sector as well. So that's where we are at the minute, and that's I think the both a concern and potentially some opportunities to come out of that as well. What I want to touch on now really is how we are reacting to the crisis. And what I want to look at is 5 types of people generally that we see in a crisis of economic type of crisis or commercial crisis. The first one's the ostrich. So we all know somebody like that. They've got their head in the sand. They're really ignoring it and sort of hoping it'll go away. And the problem is this isn't going away. You know, we do have to face it, but there is a percentage of business people, marketing teams that are really just ignoring it and hoping, don't worry, it'll all, it's fine. And they've really just got their head in the sand. So that's first type. The second type is the victim, and we've all spoke to some of those over the last few weeks, and I spoke to quite a number, and I'm sure we all have. And the victim is the person who's making excuses, and they're probably feeling a little bit sorry for themselves. Maybe they've just made a major investment, acquired some new premises, made and implemented a big decision in the business, and they feel this whole situation is really unfair. So they're the victim. The next one is the retreater. So that's the business owner or business leader that sort of knee jerks massively or even moderately and says, right, this is it, we're going to retract. We're going to contract the business. We're going to make it smaller, and we're going to make it leaner, and we're going to scale back the business. We're going to have less customers, less revenue, and scale back the business. And there are times to do that, but I think hopefully by the time you've finished with this webinar, you'll see there is some light at the end of the tunnel, and that's not necessarily the right thing to do. There is the cheerleader. So that's the person that is saying, everything's fine, everything's going to be great, everything's going to be wonderful. Why is everybody worrying? Let's just get on with it. It's all positive, it's all wonderful, and everything will turn out all right. Then lastly, there's the pilot. And if I'm honest, this is what we now need. We need lots of pilots. So if you think about a pilot and what their characteristics are, a pilot has to be very well disciplined. They have to be very calm in a crisis. They have to be very decisive. They need to be able to think quickly and clearly, interpret technical information very quickly, and say remain calm. They need to be confident, and they need to show exemplary leadership at this time. So they need to see the bigger picture, and they also need to be pragmatic as well, and deal with the situation. And that's what we need to be today. So today, part of this webinar really is, I'm not looking at detail of marketing in this. I'm not talking about what your email campaign should look like. What I'm talking about is the overall strategy. So retake your pilot test, be clear on where you want to be. That's your strategic objective. Just revisit it, make sure you're still on track. Look at how we're going to get there. So that's your route to market. So if you're a pilot, you'd have a clear navigation plan. Assess current risks and carry out safety checks. So stress test your business in people and customers and suppliers as well. Equally important to make sure your suppliers are going to be around. Ensure you have sufficient fuel, your runway, your cash flow. Make sure you're you're planning ahead for the journey, and I'll touch on that a little bit later as well. We need to jettison excess luggage, so we can't afford to carry unnecessary overhead in our own business. 3 weeks ago, we assessed all our company vehicles. We got 14 of them, and we immediately got rid of a couple of pull cars that were a nice to have, but we didn't particularly need. So we jettisoned excess luggage really quickly. And of course, you need a first-class crew around you and a first-class support team. And hopefully between Perplex and Insight Data, we can help with that. And then lastly, you need to fill that cabin with very delighted customers to go on that journey with you. Okay, business realignment, just on that point, on strategic objectives. You may be familiar with this diagram. It's used a lot. At the bottom, you've got your business resilience, your ability to attain your business as cash flow, as your resources, your people, so your resilience. And then left-hand side, you've got relevance, low to high. And the winners in this situation will be companies that are resilient and are highly relevant, i.e. your products or services are highly relevant to the audience. If they're not quite, then maybe you need to adjust your products or your services and possibly jettison some of the nice to haves that you've been working on that aren't necessarily 100% relevant at this point. The danger zone, of course, is companies and products where they have low resilience and low relevance as well. So the other two, low resilience, high relevance. That's a bit of a fight to survival. You need to you need to look at liquidity and restructure. If you're highly resilient, but your products aren't necessarily 100% relevant, then it's time to re-engineer your product or your offering. Okay, I want to now tackle the current lockdown situation. This is really difficult. We've got in Perplex, we've got about 170 customers that we manage their marketing activity for at some level or another. And they range from small local installers up to large corporates. And the response that I'm seeing is as extreme as one could possibly get it. We've got some customers that have just shut up shop, closed down, locked up completely. And then at the other end of the scale, we've got companies that are actually being really proactive. And we've even got one or two that have actually upped their marketing strategy and marketing spend as well. So first thing to understand is lockdown doesn't close down. I get it. We've got to close our factories. We've got to close our warehouses. We've got to close our showrooms. We can't necessarily have fitters on site. I get that, and I absolutely agree with it. The one thing you should not be shutting down now is your customer-facing activity. So your customer services and your salespeople should be open for business. Thing is, your customers are still online, they're still researching, they're still learning, they're still engaging with content, possibly more now than ever because they're sat at home. And if they're not looking at your information, and if they're not talking to you, then possibly they're talking to your competitors. So you've really got to look at this point your customer-facing staff, get them remote working, get them answering the calls, get them talking to customers, responding to emails. Of course, you have to be sensitive to the current situation, but it doesn't mean you're going to close your business. And I strongly argue that we need to stay open from a customer service, customer experience point of view. So I would very actively encourage you to do that. A couple of things here. One is you need to be extremely visible to your existing customers. They need to know what's going on in your business, and they need to see that you're taking a leadership role on it. You don't want to go too far the other way, which is what McDonald's have done recently, which is, you know, they took their McDonald's M and split it and got really involved in the whole social distancing fact. I think, you know, what you really got to focus on is your customers, how you're engaging with your customers, how are you supporting your customers. So I would stay open for business. I would take inquiries, deal with them, handle quotes if you can, handle orders if you can. They may not be going into the factory, they may not be going to suppliers, but I would seriously look at taking those orders and processing them and engaging with customers. And the key there is to try and build a pipeline for when the green light comes on that you can't go again. You've got a pipeline there of quotes that you can chase up straight away. You've got a pipeline of orders that you can fulfill. And also in terms of new business inquiries, one of the things that I would look to do now is schedule appointments. So, you know, for people that want to see you, if you can't do it remotely, if you can't do it via Zoom, or you can't do it by email, then get commitment by scheduling appointments, booking them 3 or 4 or 5 weeks ahead. I'd also use this lockdown period to really evaluate your marketing collateral, your website, your branding, your comms, your lead generation strategies, your direct mail and email campaigns, and really assess your product offering and even your pricing. Now is a great time to sit back and review all your pricing. And it's really interesting. I spoke to one customer yesterday who took the opportunity to sort out their warehouse and over the last week he spent some time sorting his stock and storage out on his own. As part of that, he found lots of mismeasures and basically rubbish. He stuck it all on eBay, He sold £10,000 worth of mismeasures and basically rubbish on eBay. And as he told me yesterday, that's £10,000 profit. And as an installer, he would have had to sell over £100,000 worth of windows and doors to have made that level of profit. What was also interesting is some of the people on eBay who bought it also asked him to quote for a house full of windows as well. So it's interesting. So, using this time to really evaluate everything, your systems, your processes, your marketing comms is really, really important. Okay. It's also interesting as well, sentiment as well. The sentiment out there actually is, look, if you're a business, you should be working from home, but at the same time, you should be open for business and you should be engaging with people. That's generally the sentiment. That's Brad Sugars, there is CEO of Action Coach, which is the world's largest training company and business support company. And it's interesting, I've had some feedback, particularly on LinkedIn, from people who are in the lockdown now and seeing an increase in inquiries and orders there. And this chap who's in repairs, what it means for him, he'll be going back to an even bigger order book than before. So we've got companies that are shutting up shop completely. There's one installer who's not even replying to emails or quotes, but they're on their phone and answer phone. At the other end of the scale, I've got installers who are currently generating in excess of 30 to 40 sales leads a day and are following them up via Zoom and email and so on, and selling windows and doors, or if not selling, scheduling appointments and lining up their pipeline for when they get in, when they get back again. So what I want to run through now, I want to up things quite a bit now, which is your marketing message. So first thing to do is communicate how you've tackled the crisis, what you're doing as a business. You've got into lockdown, you have first step is to protect your customers and your staff and what you've done to do that. Next one, have a clear message for your customers and the market. And that's really important to do. That is how you're currently operating. If you're open for business, then what is the best ways of communicating with you? Is it by phone? Is it by email? What are your communication messages? How can customers interact with you? That's really important. And that continuous contact with them as well is really important. Be aligned with your values as well. There's no point saying one thing and doing something completely different. I put a post out on LinkedIn 5 or 6 days ago. I had observed a leader in house building and construction who had effectively closed down his business and had refused to pay suppliers, and at the same time was on LinkedIn telling the construction industry how they should run their business and how they should operate and giving them advice. So it was quite hypocritical, and at this point you have to be aligned. So what you say, you have to be doing. And it's interesting if you look at some of the stats on this, on that one post, 54,000 impressions and 560 sort of likes or etc., and 133 comments. So that really resonated, and that's really a reflection of where you need to be aligned, what you need to be saying. Also, you need to be doing as well. A company who has done this extremely well is Taylor Wimpey. This builder is the opposite. They have proactively set aside a £5 million fund, and they are paying it forward. So they're actually supporting subcontractors going forward, who are some of the worst hit people in this situation. And actually it's quite strategic, because when they do get building again, it's going to be great for them, because they're going to have all their subcontractors on site and loyal to them. So be aligned to your values. At this point, the other key thing about your marketing messages is less about selling and more about sharing. So it's about providing information and educating customers. Basically, companies that have got a stronger brand do much better in uncertain times and through recessions than those that don't. This chart that hopefully you can see is by a company called BrandZ. They track brands globally. They're the world leader at this stuff, and they track and value brands, and they run lots of league tables to see which brands are doing better. What they did in 2006, I think it was, was they took the American S&P 500, which is a bit like our FTSE, so stock market index, and they took the S&P and they then created their own virtual stock market portfolio, which was made up of top performing brands. So not the size of the company, it was about their brand value, their brand equity. And brand equity is really as perceived by the customer in terms of their brand value and how people perceive their company and their brands and their products. And then over a period of time, they mapped this data out. And the bottom line, the purple line, is the S&P. And you can see in the middle there, in 2008, when we went into what was that time the worst recession probably in living memory, the financial crisis. You can see what happened to the valuation of companies during that point, 2008, and then slowly by 2011, 2012, they were starting to recover again. If you look at the top line, which is companies who have very strong brand equity, two things stand out there, which is they didn't drop, well, several things. They didn't drop as much. Secondly, this is a really important thing, they bounced back much, much quicker. In fact, organizations that have got very strong brands on average bounce back 18 months before those that had poor or no brands or commodities or little recognition. So where there was a lot of brand loyalty, a lot of brand equity, the companies bounce back much quicker, 18 months quicker. And not only that, they bounce back much stronger as well. A really good example of that, just one company, because it's been in the press recently, which is Tesla. Tesla was recently valued at $100 billion US. Now, that's a bigger valuation than the two biggest car companies in America, Ford and General Motors combined. Ford and General Motors are both bigger companies, but produce far more cars. But Tesla has ended up with a market capitalization which is bigger than both of them put together. How can that be? The Tesla only make about 4% of the cars in terms of volume of products in those two, and yet the company is valued far higher than them, and it's really to do with their brand and brand equity. So when you've got a product or a company which has got a strong brand, it performs better. So I'll recap on this, which is if you've got a strong brand, and why a strong brand is so important is it's got greater recognition. Customers recognize it much faster. Strong brand equals trust, and customers buy on trust. They'll look for trust signals as well. But generally speaking, when things are a little bit uncertain, things are tougher, people will tend to gravitate towards brands that they know and trust. It also increases customer loyalty. That's a really key fact of having a brand, is that you increase customer loyalty. You bought a new iPhone because you had an iPhone previously and an iPhone before that. So you tend to have increased customer loyalty when you've got a strong brand. The other thing is strong brands tend to have better margins as well. So they manage the price points better. And that in tough times actually is a massive advantage, because you have more flexibility. You have got the ability to invest more in your business because you've got better margins, and you've got more flexibility over your pricing as well. And those that don't have any of those benefits. This is also quite interesting. You've got a faster adoption. So if you have a very strong brand and you put that brand on your product or service, it's going to sell much quicker than a company that doesn't have a brand. And Apple is actually a really good example of that when they launched the iPod and the iPad and so on. These similar products have been around for years. But when you put a brand on it, the adoption of those products and services is much faster. One caveat here, the opposite is also true, which is you can very quickly and easily dilute your brand as well, and actually damage your brand. So one of the key things here, for example, and I see it in the window industry all the time amongst installers, which is they end up depending on their suppliers for the brochures, for their marketing collateral, for their website, and their marketing collateral has got all the suppliers plastered all over it. They're using their suppliers brochure, and and I can see sometimes the benefit of doing that. But if it cannibalizes your own brand and your own position, then it's the wrong thing to do. You need to focus on your brand, your business, and get it out there. What you don't want is, as an installer, going into somebody's house and 5 other suppliers, 5 other competitors have also got a similar brochure as well, with a supplier plastered all over it. So it's really important to understand it's easy to damage and dilute your own brand. And it's probably the most important thing that you've got is your brand in a business other than cash flow. But your brand is extremely valuable. So protect it and don't dilute it. This unique situation has forced a lockdown where everybody is at home. So couples that were previously working, or one of them was working, was away all day, and the kids were at school, suddenly they're all thrown together for weeks and weeks and weeks at a time. And already the sentiment coming out from that is we're climbing over each other, which I think we probably all felt that at some point. But the other thing is a new appreciation of our homes, and actually spending maybe more time in the garden, maybe more time on painting and decorating, and more time sort of looking at our house. So our home is our castle. B&Q have seen a ridiculous increase in web traffic, and any of the home improvement or gardening stores. You'll know what I'm talking about. So as a result of that, we predict a much higher demand for more living space. So it's something that we're seeing quite clearly come through in terms of sentiment, which is at the end of this, people will want more living space. And what does that look like? It will look like extensions. It will look at home gardens. It will look at home gyms, home offices, more kitchen space. So I think one thing that will happen after this, and we're already seeing some of the data start to come through on Google Trends. So for example, home office, the search traffic has increased by 25% for that in the last couple of weeks. So we're going to see a demand for greater living space. Certainly for a period of time, we're going to have less long haul holidays, and the money maybe that was spent on high ticket items that weren't to do with the home will be less prioritized, and the home will be prioritized ahead of that. More living space, home improvements, windows and doors, gardens, landscaping, redecoration, that type of thing. The housing market will stall. My own view is it won't stall for very long, but we will have a period of slowdown in terms of property transactions, and people will take that opportunity to spend more time on their home and home improvements, and maybe add more space at home. I think it will bounce back the housing market, but I think it'll take a while for that to happen because of several factors, including mortgage funding at a time of uncertainty with people's jobs. But I think people will spend money on their home. And at the same time all this is going on, there's a huge increase in media attention, internet use, and obviously we're spending more time at home. So we're spending more time researching and looking at information. So I need to speed up here. So I'm going to start running through some key stats. So I said earlier, we work with 160-ish companies right the way across the spectrum, from small installers to national installers to manufacturers to international suppliers. So what I want to do is start at the installer level, because for most of certainly the window and door industry, it sort of stems from that. The supply chain depends on that. So here's an interesting 5-year view of the search term double glazing. So I don't want to get too scientific here. I don't want to get into long tail keywords. I just want to look at some really basic stuff for the purposes of demonstration, really. So if we look at the search term double glazing over the last 5 years, that's just the search traffic for it. The spikes at the bottom are Christmas each year, and you will see the last one on the right, the spike at the bottom, is CV19. So that's approximately 23rd of March is when it bottomed out there. The important thing there, I look at over the last 12 months as well. So that's a closer look at it over the last 12 months. You'll see it steady drop at Christmas, pick back up again, and then drop around 23rd of March, and then start to pick up again. So what's happened is it hasn't hit the floor completely. It's basically dropped back to around Christmas time. So the people are still searching for these products and services. What they're doing now more than anything is doing research. But interestingly, over the last 10 days, our own digital team have seen a significant increase in traffic on all search terms relating to all home improvements. Again, very simplistic view, single word view of conservatory. You'll see how that's already picking up, and that really is a reflection of the need for more space. And actually each day we're seeing the data improve and improve and improve with more search terms. So I'm really encouraged by that. It dropped to Christmas level, and it's bouncing back very nicely at the minute. So what should installers, retail companies do? Here's some interesting stats that you might find quite useful. This data actually is from our own customers, so I won't reveal who they are, but what we've done, we've aggregated data over the whole UK geographically and across all our customers. So it's a cross-section of probably about 120 installers. So first thing to note is average cost per click is down, Google cost per click. And the reason for that is really simple. It's back to that share of voice analysis I was looking at earlier, really. And effectively what's happened is companies have cut their online marketing spend, most noticeably a couple of the big nationals. So when they cut their marketing spend, the cost of bidding on those terms reduces. So there's less demand, therefore the cost goes down. So and what we're actually seeing at the minute is cost per click has dropped 18%. That was yesterday. It changes day by day, but at the minute the cost per click is down. Therefore, you basically get more for your money in terms of Google AdWords. This is really interesting. What we're seeing is a 70% increase in Facebook usage, i.e., that's people engaging with Facebook, and it's really quite interesting. The increase in social media usage and the increase in engagement. So 70% increase in usage. This is really interesting. CPM and CPL. So CPM, basically that is your cost per thousand of impressions, i.e. how many eyeballs have looked. And this is really interesting. We're seeing a 58% decline on cost per impression, and we're seeing a 71% decline in CPL, cost per lead. So in other words, the cost to acquire inquiries and leads at the minute has dropped, and there's two reasons for that. One is higher consumer engagement, particularly on social media platforms, and secondly, competitors have cut their ad budgets and are also engaging less, so less posts, less engagement, and as a result of that, what we're seeing is an opportunity for our customers to increase their share of voice SOV quite quickly, and actually pick up some of that business. So that's really interesting. I mentioned the sort of bounce back over the last week. Week commencing the 6th of April. Last week, we've seen an increase of 60% increase in leads compared to the week commencing 23rd of March. So 23rd of March, it absolutely tanked, as you've seen in that graph, but it's bounced back, and those stats are staying strong. So this is consumer level. What we're also seeing is digital soft sell approach working. So, we can't get into the house and we can't close the deal on the night, but the strategy can change and is changing, and it is working. It's not working as well. So the sales conversion rates aren't as high, but the digital approach, i.e. when I'm talking about digital soft sell, I'm talking about sort of Zoom calls, Zoom meetings with customers. Also adding a option, we've added option to a lot of our customers' websites and the contact page to allow digital interaction, to allow replies via Zoom or other platforms, or to upload information, upload photos, upload specifications, that type of engagement. WhatsApp, Zoom, all the platforms that we've helped our customers plug into. So we're seeing that approach actually working quite well. In fact, we added something called a virtual appointment to some installers' websites to test forms, and we've had a 78% uptake amongst users that want a virtual appointment. The last thing that we've looked at in this segment really is how you adapt the offer. So in terms of going forward now, as we come out of lockdown, the first one that we've tested is buy now, fit later, pay 2021. So that's one of the strategies that we worked with installer customers, and it's working, and we're getting great consumer engagement on that. So buy now, fit later, and pay 2021. So that strategy is working, and we're working on a number of these at the minute for various customers. By the way, it isn't just digital either. We've seen benefits right the way across all media. I mean, radio is performing incredibly well at the minute for lots of reasons. People are really tuning into the radio at the minute. So any media now, there's high consumption of. So print-based media, we've got access to, particularly leaflet drops as well. So Royal Mail are actively supporting SMEs with leaflet drops, door drops, as well with a post. So that's working. Radio is working. So those types of media are working really well. Okay, coming to round up now, to summarize, I'm going to share with you 5 strategies to survive and thrive. This really, what I've talked about here today is my objective here really is just to share information that will really benefit your business as we come out of this. Like I said right at the beginning, the new normal won't be radically and massively different. Everybody's not going to change how they do business, but the market will contract slightly. There will be a bit of a domino effect from that. There are some upsides to that. The home improvement industry, I think, will do well, but there's some companies in there that are going to struggle. And what I wanted to do on this webinar really is just cut through it all and just say, look, here's specifically some of the things you should be looking at. The first thing is about corporate governance. Really, it's about how you run your business, and that is be a pilot. Don't be an ostrich. Don't be a cheerleader. Don't be a retreater and panic and run away and pull back. You're going to do more damage to your business, to your staff, and to your customers as well. So be a pilot. Be pragmatic. See the bigger picture and be prepared to plot navigate a route through that. So be a pilot. Be open for business. Absolutely be open for business. The companies now that just shut down completely and switch off the customer-facing and marketing activities will take much longer to bounce back when the market starts to recover. Everybody else will already be on it. They'll already be doing it. They'll already be talking to customers, and they'll be talking to your customers. So I would say be open for business now. Close the factories for now. Close the warehouses, but engage with customers, take orders, deal with quotes, and get ready for the green light. This is something I generally don't discuss too much in the window industry. It's something I do behind the scenes because it tends to be only really top level marketers that are really global marketers that really get this stuff, that look at this. But when you understand excess share of voice, you understand how you can grow market share even in a recession, even in a major downturn. You can increase your market share, and there's some strategies that we do at Perplex across digital, PR, reputation management, direct marketing, creative. There's stuff that we do, and we live and breathe behind the scenes that enable our customers to do this. Most of our customers actually aren't even aware of some of this stuff. And it's slightly scientific, and it's actually born probably out of 30 years experience of me doing this across companies large and small and different sectors as well, because I've got the benefit of working with a large number of companies in the fenestration building industry, but I also work with some super high growth companies in other markets as well. And I can see what works, and we adapt it to our customers. So focus on your excess share of voice. One thing on that, by the way, share of voice, is that a really inexperienced marketing team will focus on ROI, or a really business owner or director who doesn't really understand marketing and thinks they do. They'll talk about ROI, return on investment. Return on investment is only a short-term strategy. So it looks at the next week, the next month, the next 3 months, the next year. The companies that just focus on ROI ultimately lose, and the companies that focus on share of voice ultimately win, because share of voice is a strategic play, whereas ROI is a tactical play. So ROI focuses on right here and now. So I'm not saying you don't need it. You need leads today. You need those results today. Of course you do. But the companies that focus more strategically on the share of voice in a very strategic way, saying, look, where do we want to be in 2 years' time? They're the companies that will come out the winners and make some strategic decisions to enable them to do that. And it's not always about spending more money, as I showed earlier. It's about inactivity of competitors. It's also about outmaneuvering competitors as well. And actually sometimes it's about the messages that you put out too. So it's not about ROI. It's about ESOV, excess share of voice equals increased share of market. Point number 4 is in uncertain times, we focus on and we gravitate towards brands we know and trust. We all do it. It's psychological, tough. We are more cautious about where we spend our money. We're more selective about where we spend it, and we will tend to gravitate towards brands that we know and trust at the expense of those that we don't know and trust. So one thing that I would say now, the companies that perform best during uncertain times, during recessions, during crises, during tough times, are the companies with the strongest brands. So again, at Perplex, we live and breathe this stuff. So we have some very specific strategies and tools that we use to help companies improve their brand perception and their brand equity. And that's across all channels, digital, traditional, TV, radio, press, print, direct marketing, digital, all channels really. So focus on your brand and understand that people gravitate towards brands they know and trust. And the last tip here is don't wait. Do remember, whatever you're going through and the uncertainties that you're facing and your concerns and your worries are exactly the same as what your competitors are going through. And the winner in this game actually will be the companies that are most decisive and act like the pilot, put everything in place, make sure they've got the resources, the liquidity, the plans in place. So if your competitors stand still, or they retract at a time when you are pushing forward, the impact of that, the geometric impact of that, equals a much stronger and much more successful company. And that requires a pilot mentality. That takes some thinking about. But bear in mind, your competitors are also going through this. They don't know how to react. They don't know what to do. They've got liabilities. They've got costs. They've got situations within their business that they've got to tackle as well. Some of them are going to have an absolutely horrific time right now. So my advice, if you want to survive and thrive through this period and into 2021, everything I've talked about here today, by the way, none of this is immediate, other than how to react to the immediate lockdown. It's really about, in the top left-hand corner of your screen there, it's about developing through 2020 and into 2021. So understanding what your competitors are likely to go through means that you can focus on your business and going forward. So what can we do to help? Perplex and Insight Data, I launched Perplex in 2004. Over the years, I have worked with, as Sam said, I got into the building products industry about 30 years ago now, and over that time I've worked with literally hundreds and hundreds, worked with and advised them over those years, big companies and small companies. So we've got a team of about 75, 74 people. They really care about what we do, they really care about our customers, and we're absolutely here to support our customers and support the industry. So with Perplex, if you're not a Perplex customer at the minute, we're going to provide a completely free, full strategic and tactical assessment, a marketing plan for you if you need it. That's complete review, your website, your assets, your creative assets, your marketing strategy, social media, your advertising. It's worth noting, even on your website at the minute, one of the things that is having a big impact to web at the minute is how quickly your website loads, because there's been about a 50% increase in web traffic during this crisis. And if your website is slow loading, or it's a couple of years old, then it's going to be badly impacted during that point. So we're doing a complete free strategic review. So strategic is 12 to 24 months. And tactical is what we can do now to support lead generation and developing your brand. It's completely free, no obligation with that whatsoever. If you're a trade supplier, we will also do it for your customers as well. So there's no obligation. There's no sales pitch in there. It's just to support anybody that we can. With Insight Data, for anybody who's involved in the trade or commercial market, Insight Data database has over 88,000 records of window companies, building contractors, house builders, architects, specifiers, builders merchants, main contractors, really the whole supply chain in the construction industry. And Insight Data operates on a monthly subscription basis, but at the minute for any companies that don't currently use our platform, Sales Tracker, we're providing that as a trial for a month, just so you can get your head into it. Maybe look at how you can build some prospect databases to help you when the green light comes on. And there we are. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, and be safe. And we'll see you when the green light comes on.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.